You see, Russia has armed and moved against Ukraine and then into the Middle East. Clearly she's planning to do that, or has been planning to do that. Go back 1 year from now, or a little bit more, a year and a bit, just about the time of Easter. A show of strength. Putin uses VE Day to stage the biggest Red Square military parade since the collapse of communism. There it is. Never seen anything like it. Latest, the best, the greatest. Heaps of weaponry in Moscow and various other cities. And the Europeans analysing it said this: Moscow is actively preparing for war in Europe. Daily Mail. But he didn't move into Europe. Caught them offhand. But what he did was, on that occasion, very shortly afterwards, he called up a huge number of troops, 95,000, and put them on the borders of Europe. Easter last year. But he didn't stop there. That was that. He had already in March pulled in 80,000, and then in September 95,000, and then in October 150,000. This is beside his normal standing army. Beside his normal standing army. Something like 230,000 extra troops. What's it all for? Well, Ezekiel 38 says, first of all, he'll be a guard to his allies in the Middle East. And so Russia moved in, supposedly to help Assad, his ally. They moved down into the Middle East. Other problems were going on down there, and I just think it's fascinating that Dr. John Thomas understood a little of this, or seemed to understand it. He said this way back in 1856: the Shiites of Persia and the Sunni hate each other with a hatred not exceeded by that which the Orangemen, that's the Irish Protestants, and the Romanists, the Roman Catholic Irish, hate each other. You see, they began terrorism. They started blowing each other up. Brother Thomas seemed to understand that that would be what the Arabs would do. They'd follow the same approach. And so, Persia, will be led to indulge in dreams of extending her frontier into the direction of Baghdad by the aid of Russia. The area of Iraq was getting weaker and weaker because they were fighting against each other. You listen to the radio sometime of how many people die each week. In Baghdad alone, it's often thousands in terrorist activity. Terrible what's going on. And Iran therefore said, an opportunity to get control of Iraq. But they needed help. And they got it. They asked for Russia to send in weaponry, and down it came. And so things are moving. In came Russia into the Middle East to help Assad and to help the Iranians. Vladimir Putin bids for major world role as the forces move into Syria. Look at the date, September last year. Russia's military expansion into Syria, the largest deployment of Russian forces since the collapse of USSR. Massive numbers moving in. Here's Syria. In they came. They flew the planes in over Iraq and Iran. We'll talk more about that in a minute. They brought their ships into Tartus, here. And so they were controlling this coastline here of Syria. Then they began flying in men in huge numbers. Not this way. Europe refused to let them pass. Turkey refused to let them pass. More on that in a minute. And so they came in, flying across these countries here. They were allowed to fly over Iran and Iraq. And so here we can see, as the papers are saying, Telegraph in London, September, Putin is carrying out Russia's biggest military intervention outside of the old Soviet Union for almost 30 years. It's really stretching its muscles. It's moving. And there in the Middle East, it began to support its allies, bombing and attacking city after city. Come on, isn't America there? Yes, America had troops there. The papers captured the idea of what was going to happen or what was happening. There we are. There's Mr. Putin. There's Russia. Do you know anybody know what this fella here with this puppy, this teddy bear is? Was Obama. That's how they saw it. She's not doing anything. And exactly true. She started to back out. It was getting so dangerous. And so the cities began to be hammered in support of those who are allies of Mr. Putin. Aleppo, assault by the Syrian army, backed by heavy Russian air power. In she came and bombed it. Look at the city. Would you like to be living there? And the result. Let's come back to the empires. So this has got to be an alliance of empires in the last day. Let's start with there. The Babylonian Empire, what's the territory today? Iraq, Syria. Okay, we'll put the next one to it to save a little bit of time. What's the next empire? There it is. The Medo-Persian Empire, all the way to the Indus, India. So we've got to see those countries allied together with Russia. With Russia. Ezekiel 38 says the same. All of them handling sword. And in those days, the word Persia, if you look up the meaning in the King James time, it did cover these countries here. All right? So what are we seeing? Who's the allies of Mr. Putin and Russia? Iraq, Iran, Syria. Iraq cooperating with Russia. Iran, Syria on security issues. We're buddies. Mr. Putin goes down and visits the Iranians. There he is, the leader of Iran. Here's Mr. Putin. What are they doing? Signing the biggest military deal ever with Iran. We'll help you, all right? Big time. The best and the most important deal in the whole history of the Islamic Republic, said the BBC. So yes, they're allies with Syria, Iraq, Iran. What about Afghanistan? Oh yeah, well, America's just pulled out because, well, we've brought some sort of semblance of stability into that area. That's what they thought. Australia pulled out too. So what does Afghanistan? Turns to Russia. Why? Because America is untrustworthy. What? Well, you see, America didn't really want to go to war again, and so you couldn't rely on them to be there to help. So right now, sadly, Putin is a better bet for the Afghanistanians, the Americans, than the Americans. So they're moving in, big time. So Afghanistan and Russia sign a deal for weaponry. They're coming together. They're allies.